Hey, it's Andrew here from safetyontap.com. This episode's part of my 2017 end of year challenge. I'm committing to give you 2 weeks of solid advice, reflections and actions so you can maximize what you learn from 2017 and unleash your greater performance in 2018. I'm sharing 1 episode every single day for the 2 weeks leading up to Christmas. So check out the other episodes 55 through to 65. There's no particular order to these. Each one of them will be great on their own, but listening to more of them will give you much greater value. And if you're listening to this at any other time of the year, have no fear. The best time for you to take action on this stuff is always right now. In this episode, I'm reflecting on what we can learn from the law of the harvest. Download your reflection worksheet from safetyontap.com/Ep063. I live in beautiful regional South Australia between the Barossa Valley and the urban fringes of Adelaide. It's a farming area. The main crops around here are cereals like wheat and barley and pulses like lentils and beans. This time of year is harvest time for those farmers, and in fact many hope to be finished in time for Christmas, but a number will need to continue harvesting through Christmas and potentially into New Year's without much of a break. In episode 58, which I called Look Up and Out, I urged you to look beyond our traditional health and safety knowledge and ideas to other fields. An example of how I've done this was learning from permaculture, which I talk about in that episode, which amongst other things includes a strong focus on observation of what's around us and working with nature. And this has got me thinking both in the work that I do on my little farm here and observing those farmers around us and talking to our relatives who are farmers. I realised that there's a lot we can learn from the laws of the harvest, which I wanted to share with you today. When you think about the harvest, it begins years before. It's not all tractors and dusty sunsets and full silos. The work for that harvest begins way before that. Most farmers practice crop rotation, which means that they plant a different crop every year or few years, which helps to break the pest and disease cycles. Often these crops are not lucrative because they are part of the preparation for the lucrative crop, which is once every few years. I think we can forget that the boring, drudgerous and unglamorous work that we sometimes do contributes to the bigger outcome, although it might not feel that great at the time. If we don't do that preparation, then we may not have as good a harvest. In fact, of the total life cycle time, the actual harvesting bit, the results, are tiny in proportion to all of the hard work that goes into leading up to it. And of course, crop growing takes time. You can choose when you sow your seed, but you can't make a crop hurry up and grow. There's a natural time frame for it to mature. I think in our work, sometimes we feel the need to hurry up, close out these non-conformances or get these systems certified, which we do and we feel like we've got a great harvest. But all I'll say is that it's usually the weeds that are the plants that grow the fastest compared to the crop. A great harvest also needs great soil. You can add all the fertiliser and chemicals and do all the ploughing to unfertile soil, and it might give you an okay yield, but not for long. And that's not to say that we can't turn poor ground into great soil, but nature tells us that there's a process of time and patience involved. Around here, sandy hills are a problem. Crops don't do well there. Do you ever feel like you're sowing your seed into ground like that? You know, the people and the organisations who just aren't ready for the seeds, that's what I'm talking about. Maybe we just need to stop sowing sometimes. Maybe we need to choose a different seed. But in all cases, we will need to continue to build the soil, which doesn't happen overnight. Good farmers have an agronomist which does soil tests, and they advise them on which areas need more or less fertiliser or carbon, how much to sow here or there, and they adapt what they do according to the soil. When you're sowing, a great crop comes from great seeds. Some farmers buy seed from other companies, and others keep their best seed from one year and they use it to the next. But if you keep the low-yielding seeds, which suffered, say, from diseases or grew poorly, that's what you'll get the next harvest. Sometimes I feel like we sow the wrong seeds in our work. Seeds like fear and compliance or control, or seeds from somewhere else that aren't suited to our situation. Sure, they might grow a little and you might get a little harvest, but it's not going to be the best harvest you could get. When you sow any crop, you'll reap more than you sow. What I mean is that one single grain of wheat will grow into a plant with a flower head full of grains, 20, 30 individual seeds. The work done to prepare for the crop is the best chance that you have to multiply that harvest, to have a nice big full seed head. So the more work you do now, which is the right kind of work, means the fuller seed head you'll get later. You know how many companies are scratching their heads because they're doing more safety and yet performance is sort of flatlining? Their seed heads are getting smaller each year, but they keep doing the same thing, more time and money on the inputs beforehand. I think that means it's time to rethink some of that stuff. You reap in proportion to how much you sow and how densely you sow. You can grow wheat in a pot plant on your balcony if you want, but it won't be enough even for a loaf of bread. The more and the broader you sow your ideas, your support, your passion, your ingenuity, the more you will reap from your harvest. Some crops need to be sown closely together to support each other, like beans. Some won't do well if they're sown too close together. You know, they choke each other out. Our initiatives need a critical mass of communication and support and actions to take hold, but if you drown people in safety messages and alerts and procedures and audits, you won't be harvesting much. It needs some balance. Farmers know this all too well. Despite all the advances in technology and equipment, seed varieties, fertilisers, pesticides, herbicides, and all the rest, you can't cheat nature. There will always be uncertainty, which is difficult to predict. We can predict the weather to some extent, but drought and frost and wind still destroys crops. Farmers take risks even when there's a chance of failure. Otherwise, they should just sell the farm and move to the city. Uncertainty and risk is a part of nature. Sometimes the best we can do is to predict the best we can and to be resilient enough through our readiness, our backup plans, our recovery plans. For me, this is one of the most powerful metaphors in the argument against zero harm philosophies. Nothing in nature supports the idea of no harm, but the resilient ecosystems, people, farms and crops, they're the ones that will survive. This is a deep reflection episode, which I think is good from time to time. No tactics, no bright and shiny ideas, just my reflection on this metaphor of the law of the harvest and what I've learned from it. And hopefully your reflection on it will help you to take positive, effective and rewarding action to grow yourself, and hopefully your harvest will be drastic improvements in health and safety along the way. See ya.